was only 8 years old, and I've lived in haunted houses my entire childhood. None that have traumatized me like this one. My family and I lived in a fairly big house, just outside of Temecula, California, and that house had a dark, evil energy. I dreaded coming home every day from elementary school, and I especially dreaded nighttime. That's when everything obviously got worse. We were a small nuclear family. It was just me, my mother, little brother Alexander, and my Marine father, who was usually gone in Afghanistan or Iraq. Whatever was in that house loved when my father left. The activity got 10 times worse, and it loved to toy with me and my little brother. When we first moved in, it wasn't so bad. Toys going off on their own, unexplained noises in the attic, things that could be brushed off. Until one night. My little brother was still a baby, maybe around 2 to 3 years old at the time. Still crib bound. My mom, sleeping in her bed, woke to hear some weird noises coming from the baby monitor in the middle of the night. She described it as loud static, and then a man's deep disembodied voice talking over the monitor. My mom immediately jumped out of bed, rushing over to my baby brother's room. She burst through the door, only to see a shadowy-like being floating in front of his crib, staring down at him. As quickly as she entered, the shadow flew backward into the open closet at lightning speed, slamming the door shut, causing a hanger to fall down onto the floor outside of the closet. I can't imagine the fear my mother felt after seeing that, but I know that she ended up moving Alexander's crib to her room immediately. This was just after my dad left for Afghanistan, so obviously the activity would get worse from here on out. And the activity certainly didn't only extend to my baby brother, but whatever this energy was, it had a certain fascination with him. Anyway, we ended up getting a 3-month-old yellow Labrador named Berkeley. My mom knew we didn't feel safe, neither did she, so maybe having a little protector would put us at ease. Berkeley was a very friendly dog. He was always extremely gentle with small kids and animals. Even when my baby brother would pull on his tail. So when I look back on around the time we first brought him home, his teeth bared, snarling, growling, and barking at an empty corner of the playroom. Something I've never seen him ever do in his 15 years of life, let alone as a puppy. My 8-year-old self knew there was something dark in this house, and that Berkeley could see it, and so could my brother. And that brings us to Thanksgiving. We all invited our extended family and ate together at the long dining table. We all sat together, chatting obviously, till my baby brother comes running out of the playroom, pale and crying. My mom picks him up and sits him on her lap. She and the rest of the family trying to ask him what was wrong, but he can barely speak. All he does is point his little shaky finger, moving slowly across the dining room, as if there was someone walking across the room. The rest of the family laughed it off, trying to console him and put him at ease, but I'm pretty sure my mom knew too, that he was seeing something that we could not see. A little bit after Thanksgiving, another incident with my brother happens. While I was upstairs, he let out a blood-curdling scream and ran out of the playroom to my mom's arms while she was on the couch. I immediately came downstairs to see what happened. We've never seen him so scared. My mom tries to soothe him and asks what happened, but all he says is that the man grabbed him by his arms and tried to pull him into the toy box with him. My mom and I, terrified to hear this, after all we've seen and heard, we 100% believed him. Alexander refused to go into his toy box again, so we took out all his toys and laid them on the ground outside of it. Only minutes later, I was sitting in the dining room on the family computer, playing Build-A-Bear, trying to distract myself from the event that just unfolded. And then, my mom with widened eyes looks over at me from the couch. Lexi, she whispers firmly, fear in her voice. I snap my head up to see the Christmas chain I made at school, hanging on the wall just beside the TV, being lifted up from the bottom chain. This wasn't a draft of wind. Something was holding the paper chain up by the tail end. It began to move around in an odd way, something bending it around. It then yanked hard on it, pulling the chain down entirely off the wall and onto the floor. There was absolutely no denying it now. There's some type of energy in this house. My family was so afraid of nighttime Me, my mom, the dog, and my baby brother all slept in a room every single night with the door locked. At nighttime, when the heavy footsteps would follow you up the stairs, pots and pans would be played with. Toys would go off when they weren't supposed to. Sometimes, saying things they weren't supposed to say. In the attic. Oh my God, don't get me started. It was like they were having a party up there, stomping around at 3 a.m. Not to mention, waking up the next morning to find the pots and pans scattered all over the floor. It's like whatever this was, enjoyed chaos and our fear. That's when my mother gave me wise advice at such a young age that I still use to this day. Do not show fear, no matter what. It feeds off of it. One day, I was feeling brave. I was going to go into my own room for once in the middle of the day and lock the door. I was going to take my mom's advice. F this ghost. I clicked the door shut and locked it. I climbed up the ladder to my singular bunk bed with space underneath it and made a circular of stuffed animals around me. I'm telling you, the minute I settled down into my bed, "Hi," says a very high-pitched childlike voice coming from the space below my bed. It spoke to me. It spoke directly to me. I froze. I felt my heart beat in my throat. It didn't sound like a child. It sounded like an adult mimicking a child's voice. I wanted to scream so badly, but I remembered my mom's advice. So I slowly but shakily began climbing down the ladder. My entire body felt like jello. "What did you just say?" I asked, trying to hide my fear. It didn't respond. I ran to my door, shaky hands fumbling with the lock, and got the hell out of there. No matter where I went, no matter the time of day, I was constantly on alert for the next thing that would happen. Some nights, I'd be too scared to even sleep. My mom made the mistake of accidentally falling asleep on the couch while watching TV one night, while the rest of us were sleeping in a room as usual. Then, my mom wakes to all the toys simultaneously going off. She tries to brush it off, ignoring it. Maybe it will go away. No, it wanted and needed her attention. A couple seconds later, she can hear the pitter-patter of bare feet running across the tile, and then boom. Like someone pounded their fist onto the sliding glass door as hard as they could. She quickly rises up and sees the blinds are bent and twisted, and immediately calls the police. The police come around 2 or 3 a.m., flashlights searching every inch of the house, including the attic. No intruders. My mom had enough, so she turns to a priest and has him come to our home. Unfortunately, that didn't work. One day after school, I see her light white candles in every single room of the house, smiling and dancing. She told me to join her. That our good energy was supposed to contradict the bad. I did so, thinking of all the happy thoughts I could as I danced in each room. That didn't work either. All we could do was wait for my dad to come back, while every family member that stayed the night left feeling disturbed. My father finally arrived home. I think about 8 months later. The activity dialed down a bit, but not completely. He was a firm disbeliever in ghosts, but after returning home, even he admitted that the things he saw happening left him feeling stumped and unsettled. We lived in the house for 2 whole years. 2 years of horror movie-like activity. 2 years of my nervous system being on high alert 24/7. I was relieved when my family got stationed at Fort Leonardo Wood. We could finally leave this place. As my mom was doing some packing, she could hear what sounded like a mother scolding her child in the walkway. That's why we believed there were multiple entities. Regardless, she prayed that they didn't follow us, and they didn't. But that didn't mean we were safe from the spirits of our next home. Far from it. For the privacy of those who were involved, I'll be changing the names of everyone. When I was 15 years old, I met my now ex-boyfriend. He was a year older than me, but I was best friends with the girl he had known forever. I'll call him Theo. He and I had been around each other often because we shared the same friend group. I knew that he had a rough past and liked to drink and smoke, which I didn't, but never had an issue with it because we were all in high school, and in my crowd, I was the odd one out for not doing so. I also knew his best friend Mitch because we went to the same school, but knew about their whole group who consisted of Theo, Mitch, Tommy, and Rich, who I also wasn't too familiar with. Tommy and Rich were into heavy drinking, heavier drugs, and often stole from local small restaurants who had liquor licenses. I wanted nothing to do with those two from the start, and my ex never pushed it, so it was never an issue until the night it became a very big issue. I think I should have mentioned here that we all live in a very safe town. The only big news really was the people getting busted for drugs because it's a port city. I had grown up states away in a very big city where we nicknamed the 5 o'clock news the murder show. But here, even a non-fatal stabbing or an unarmed robbery was pretty much the max violence. So after school one Friday, Theo, Mitch, and I were all hanging out at a mutual friend's place. I had noticed Theo being quite tired at school, saying he had been with friends drinking the night before, while Mitch hadn't shown up at school, but came to hang out, which I didn't think too much about, besides the fact that he wasn't wearing the normal red hoodie he wore every single day. Everyone besides me started drinking a bit, while we all chatted and hung out. Maybe 20 minutes into this, Theo gets a frantic phone call from his mom, asking why the police were at their house looking for him, and Mitch and they both looked at each other, with the most dread I've ever seen still 10 years later. Before anyone could respond, we heard his mother start screaming over the phone, "Oh my God, Rich is dead. Why is he dead?" My stomach instantly dropped. His mom said she was coming over immediately to get him and Mitch. The room was deafeningly silent. I remember wanting to ask so many questions, but at the same time, thought it'd be better to just stay quiet and know nothing. After what felt like an eternity, we all decided to go down to the first floor from the third floor we had been on. I was the last one to file down the stairs to the first floor, but before I could, the front door bursted open and around 12 cops, all in full gear, guns out, stormed in yelling for all of us to put our hands up and slowly lay down on our stomachs. When 2 officers started cuffing us, the rest started clearing each room. I remember feeling like this couldn't all be real, not even thinking about why it was happening, but still trying to even comprehend what was happening. We were led outside and Theo and Mitch were held on the ground while a separate officer was allowing my other friend and I to be seated on a step after searching us. These are all the parts I vividly remember. I wasn't angry, scared, or really anything because it all happened so quickly that I couldn't even process it. All I knew was that I had just had a gun pointed at me for the first time in my life, and that Theo and Mitch knew a lot more than anyone else. At some point, all of the cops had left the house, placed Theo and Mitch into different cop cars, and were uncuffing me and my friend who were still sat there in disbelief. I didn't know if this all had been 10 minutes or 3 hours. I felt nothing. It wasn't until a few days later that I got the whole story. The night before all of this, Theo, Mitch, Rich, and Tommy had been busy. First, they went around looking for unlocked cars to steal out of, and by the third car, they discovered and stole a loaded gun. Next stop, a local restaurant bar, where they proceeded to steal as much liquor as they possibly could. Third stop, back to Tommy's house to drink as much as humanly possible. At some point late into the night, they all went to walk a very intoxicated Theo home, and Tommy refused to leave his new toy at home. The streets this happened on was a residential, and 2 different houses got it all on security cameras. It wasn't until the first neighbor, who was leaving for work that morning, found his body. In the end, everyone walked free, besides Tommy, who only got 4 years for everything. And I witnessed firsthand something most people never will at just 15. I've been in law enforcement for over 16 years here in Texas, and I've seen more than my fair share of tragic, creepy, and downright unexplainable things on the job. From murder scenes, to suicides, to fatality accidents. Sometimes, a place just feels different. There was one call I went to, a death notification, that really freaked me out. I had to contact some family members of a deceased woman that was involved in a fatal car accident a few miles away from her home. When I arrived, I met a woman near the roadway, just inside the property gate. She said she heard me coming from miles away. I asked her if she lived at the residence, which she confirmed she did. After asking her to speak with me at the house, she agreed, but she said she needed to walk as the house was about 75 yards from the road. After making it to the house, I approached the front door on a small wooden porch and began scanning the driveway for the woman. It was about 1 a.m. and completely dark. While looking for the woman, the front door opened and a younger woman appeared. She was concerned about my presence and asked me if everything was okay. I asked if I could speak with her and any other adults inside, and she welcomed me in. I told her I would wait for the woman I met near the gate, and she told me nobody else should be home. I then freaked out and began searching the property. Nothing. After entering the residence, I told her and her husband about the news about Susan, which ended up being her mother. She said her mother moved in a few months back after her father had passed, and she wasn't handling it well. While she and her husband were comforting one another, I began looking at photos on the wall. There was this picture of a middle-aged woman that stuck out to me. She was a younger version of the woman I spoke with near the gate. While looking at the picture, the daughter confirmed that that was her mother, the woman that passed in the wreck. I spoke with the ghost of the individual that died in the crash just before telling her family what happened.